Hello Reapers, my name's Seth and we are back here with some more Trove updated Flux farming tutorial. I know, I just put out a Flux farming tutorial, but I didn't know that this Trove Heroes update was going to end up changing the game as fundamentally as it does. So this guide is going to be talking about how you're going to end up getting Flux as both a free-to-play player and a pay-to-win player. Pay-to-win players, for the most part, you're going to be covered if you end up just buying credit pouches because they're going to end up increasing in price like crazy. We'll talk about why in a little bit, but before we end up getting started with this guide, everybody, I would appreciate if you would hit that like button, makes the video show up in searches and stuff, and then hopefully we can end up making this Flux farming tutorial video more popular than my other Flux farming tutorial video, which keeps getting views but is extremely out of date. Yeah, I know. So with the Trove Heroes update that's going to be hitting in March 2018, we're going to end up seeing this new biome, as well as a whole bunch of new resources, and a lot of them are tradable. So that's the cool thing here, because you're going to end up needing hundreds, if not thousands, hundreds of thousands, in fact, of the new resource in order to end up crafting all of these new items in the game, which, I mean, I have appropriate tutorials talking about all the new items and the craftables and stuff like that, but for today, we're just going to be focusing on how you actually end up making the Flux. So for Flux farming, there's a couple resources you can go for. Cinnabar is always going to be a good one, and when this update ends up going live, Cinnabar is going to increase in price drastically because of the fact that we're going to have to be crafting beacons with Cinnabar. If we end up going over to the resistors crafting table right here, you can see that beacons, which is going to be required to summon world bosses in your club world, as well as going to be a requirement to get yourself sentient shards, because the player that ends up throwing these bad boys down in a club world is going to get themselves a sentient shard. These guys cost Cinnabar. Oh my gosh. And Robo Salvage, another resource that is going to increase in price drastically. And then we've got Plasminium. This is going to be a new resource that you grind out of this biome exclusively from both enemies and dungeons alike. So that's probably going to end up being the best thing that you can sell for money, because the Plasminium is going to be required for absolutely everything. You're going to need it for crafting beacons. You're going to need it for crafting the new class because of all these other items that you need for it. You're going to need it to craft all the materials that are going to be required to craft all of the mounts and everything like that, simultaneously to craft wings and a whole bunch of other things, because, oh, a logic loop, that's going to end up costing you even more Plasminium. Like, oh my gosh. Not to mention the robotic salvage is just insane. And Plasminium, that's going to pretty much be the absolute best way of making Flux in this entire game. There are a couple other methods of making Flux. Radiant shards. So as you go into a sky world and start doing radiant shard dungeons, that's going to end up being something that you're going to want to go for. Which means, if you want Radiant Shards, you're going to have to do that on Tuesday, everybody. Otherwise, better luck next time, because you're going to get double Radiant Shards, or triple if you end up having patrons. So, suddenly, Flux farming is going to be to specific days, because on Dragon Day, it might actually be better than the Plasminium thing, because as Plasminium slowly ends up getting added to the game, obviously it's going to end up decreasing in value as more and more players end up getting more and more of the items that are actually required to craft it, requiring the item to craft with, like the material. But I think that it's always going to end up being a resource that's going to be very, very coveted because of the absurd amount that you need, especially with free-to-play players trying to get their hands on the Vanguard class and stuff like that. It's just going to be pretty crazy. Now, for Friday, Dragon Day, this is going to be crazy because you're going to end up getting 2 times, if not 3 times, the Dragon Fragments, right? Dragon Fragments loot collect for a whole lot of Flux. So going out and farming world dragons, because they're actually going to guaranteed give you a drop rather than trying to farm the fragments yourselves. Honestly speaking, it might actually be better to go and try to farm for the floral dragon fragments. I have a video tutorial talking about that, but essentially those sunflower dungeons that are in peaceful hill biomes, if you end up running over the plants and destroying them, you're going to have a chance of getting a flower fragment. And it might actually be better to just use the 3 times day, or 2 times, I guess, to end up getting those fragments and then loot collecting those, than it would be to fight a chocolate dragon, an aquatic dragon, or a pirate dragon. Kind of pick your poison. Decide for yourself what you want to do with that. And then on loot day, you're going to have more magic find. Now, here's the thing. Excuse me, pardon me. When the new class gets added to the game, that also means that there's going to be a new stellar weapon. So you can end up getting tradable versions of his drop, which isn't going to be expensive for very long as players end up slowly getting more and more of this new item. But the fact that this is the only character in the game currently that ends up using a fist weapon means that a player has to have the Vanguardian in order to even farm and actually get his weapon as a stellar drop. So the price of the Vanguardian weapon, especially with attack speed second stat, is probably going to end up being very, very expensive for a very long time. Now, if by the time you're watching this tutorial, it's been a couple years or something like that, in which case, why are you even watching this tutorial? Then maybe it'll decrease in price, but either way, you're going to have more magic find on loot day, so obviously that's going to end up helping your chances of getting a stellar drop, or even a radiant drop for the weapon is going to end up being useful. But you're also going to end up getting double chance or triple chance of getting Flux artifacts from completing dungeons, so it kind of doubles as you're farming for stellar drops, but you're also just making Flux in the process, right? So very, very useful in that regard. And the fact that almost all of the things that you end up getting, for these materials and stuff, like it all costs plasminium, which is going to be a tradable resource. And, there's going to be like all sorts of crazy things that are going to end up costing. Like, look at this. The amount of items that you actually need is insane. And the robo salvage, like none on that guy actually, but robo salvage right there. Robo salvage is going to increase in price drastically. Crystallized clouds is going to be another thing that you can end up farming for, but most of all, again, this flux farming method that I'm talking about today is going to take effect when the Trove Heroes update ends up hitting in March 2018. So this is how you can prepare. I've already seen on the live server that a lot of these items have actually had a big increase in price as people are trying to capitalize on all of these items that are going to end up being that much more valuable when the update ends up going live. But you can start preparing yourselves right now, Reapers. Start gathering all the materials that you can. Maybe if you have enough flux, it might be actually worthwhile to invest your resources in Cinnabar like crazy right now, because that's going to be one that's going to end up going up in price, because Cinnabar is a fairly new resource to the game, and because of it, not many people actually have it right now. I mean, lots of people have it, don't get me wrong, but my point being that Cinnabar is a harder resource to actually get in the game, just as far as ore is concerned, and top that with the fact that it's new, so there's not an insane amount of it in the game right now, so it's going to end up increasing in price as it ends up becoming more valuable. Not to mention beacons, again, I cannot stress enough, is a reusable item, meaning that we're going to need tons and tons of Cinnabar. Now, again, as pay-to-win players, you're just going to end up either selling credit pouches outright. Honestly, I would say that that's your best method for actually making Flux. It's just selling those because it's going to be the biggest trade-off. Or if you want, you could end up buying the greater neon caches, risking your chance of actually getting a rare drop out of it and selling it. But again, the fact that this is actually 4 credits means that free-to-play players are going to really want to start stocking up on credit pouches. So we're going to see a huge increase in price for credit pouches in general as more and more items get added to the store that are going to end up costing credits, right? So really cool. I'm actually really excited about all of that. And just the class itself too, when this comes out, you're going to be able to buy the class pack for 3,000 credits, or you can just spend money. But the fact is that this is going to end up being an option for free-to-play players to end up actually getting this. So again, it's going to end up being that much more resourceful to end up getting the credit pouches, because the other thing too, free-to-play players, is if you're trying to get all of these things, I mean, granted, this is a flux farming tutorial, but I'm just saying that if you're trying to get any of these resources, honestly speaking, it would probably be better, or not the resources so much, but getting these mounts, for example. It's probably better that you actually just use the methods that I've talked about today to get your flux up so that you can get credit pouches and end up buying these greater neon caches, right? Because that's going to be a lot cheaper time-wise than trying to get your hands on a Griffin Talisman and all these other resources. Probably going to be cheaper flux-wise as well to just go the credit pack route, because a lot of this is going to end up being either time-gated content or just content that you're going to end up getting slowly over time. And the reason why I keep highlighting the 33 greater neon caches is because while you do have a chance of getting a rare drop out of 1 or even 11 of the greater caches, the pack of 33 is proper loot boxes as far as the story is concerned. I'm really happy that the devs ended up doing this, because essentially you're going to end up getting one box, this golden one right here, out of the 33 pack that is guaranteed going to give you a rare drop. And the thing is that while all of the ones that you end up crafting, these are not going to be tradable, the ones that you actually get out of the store boxes, the greater caches themselves, I don't expect to be tradable, but the amount that you actually end up getting out of the box, that is going to be tradable. So hopefully you found this video helpful, everybody. You know, Flux is going to end up changing the way that the game works right now. Just like Flux farming and everything like that is going to end up being completely different, which also means that lots of people should actually start getting lots and lots of Flux with these new resources coming into the game, which does mean that prices are going to end up fluctuating and inflating really, really fast while this update is hot and coming out, which means that you can capitalize and end up getting even more Flux, because after a while, when the resources and the desire for these resources ends up decreasing, it means they're gonna end up evening out at a more steady price. But I am confident, excuse me, I am confident that these resources and items, most of all Plasminium, is probably still, even after the update has been out for a couple months, going to end up being one of the best resources to get in the entire game, unless we end up seeing more sub-biomes end up getting added to the game that are going to have similar crafting tables, which I am fairly confident that the developers are going to end up going in this route, because this crafting table alone not only is going to give free-to-play players a lot more ways of actually making Flux, pay-to-win players are going to be able to make a killing on it, and thus the game itself is going to generate tons more income just on the fact that we've got new pretty mounts and everything like that. So I fully expect that they're going to add more crafting tables and other sub-biomes very similar to this one to all of the different biomes eventually over time, because of the fact that it's just going to end up making them more money, but also it means that I'm going to have to update these Flux farming tutorials accordingly as those get added to the game. But in the meantime, this is going to be it for the Trove Heroes update, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, favorite, and subscribe for more daily content. That's also going to build up loyalty points in my merch store. Links are in the description for that. And links are in the description for Gawkbox as well, which is a way that you can end up donating to me for absolutely free. Sayonara, and stay epic, everybody.